The diplomatic vessel touched down on the rocky surface of Velkara with a soft hiss. Inside the ship, Ambassador Hyun straightened his uniform and looked at his small team. Minji checked her datapad one last time. Day smiled nervously at everyone. They all knew this would not be easy. The Velkari were not known for their kindness to outsiders. They were massive wolf-like creatures who stood nearly 8 feet tall. Their fur ranged from gray to black, and their yellow eyes could pierce through a person's soul. They valued strength above everything else. Fighting was their religion. Combat was their art. As the airlock opened, hot air rushed into the ship. Hyun stepped out first, his 2 teammates following close behind. A group of Velkari warriors waited for them on the landing platform. The creatures towered over the humans, their muscled bodies covered in scars that they wore like medals. The largest Velkari stepped forward. He wore a dark red cloak that signified his rank. This was Chieftain Vorthak, the leader of the entire planet. His scarred face showed no warmth. "So these are the humans," Vorthak said, his voice like grinding stones. "I expected you to be bigger." Several warriors behind him laughed. The sound was harsh and mocking. Hyun bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Chieftain Vorthak, we are honored to be here. We come to discuss trade agreements that could benefit both our worlds." Vorthak sniffed the air around the humans. "You smell like prey, weak, soft. Tell me, human, what does your kind know of strength? What do you know of war?" Minji stepped forward. "We know enough to survive, Chieftain. Humans have fought many wars throughout our history." A scarred warrior named Kresh moved closer. He circled the humans like a predator examining wounded animals. "Wars. What wars could creatures like you fight? Do you bite each other with your flat teeth? Do you scratch with your dull claws?" More laughter erupted from the gathered Velkari. Even the cubs who watched from a distance seemed amused. These young Velkari, not yet fully grown, sat on elevated platforms around the landing area. They were there to learn from their elders, to watch how true warriors behaved. Day maintained his smile despite the insults. "Perhaps we could discuss this inside? We have brought gifts and proposals." Vorthak waved a massive paw dismissively. "Gifts can wait. First you will see what real warriors look like. You will understand why the Velkari are feared across 10 star systems. Then we will decide if you are worthy of our time." The chieftain turned and walked toward a large arena in the distance. The other warriors followed. Hyun looked at his team and nodded. They had no choice but to follow. The arena was a brutal place. The ground was hard-packed dirt stained dark with old blood. Weapons hung on the walls, swords and axes and clubs designed to hurt. The stands around the arena were filled with Velkari citizens who had come to watch the demonstration. "Our young warriors train from the moment they can walk," Vorthak announced, his voice carrying across the arena. "They learn that only the strong survive. Only the strong deserve to survive." 2 adult Velkari warriors entered the arena. They wore minimal armor and carried wooden practice weapons that still looked deadly. They saluted the chieftain and then turned to face each other. What followed was violence that made the humans flinch. The 2 warriors crashed into each other with savage force. They bit, clawed, and struck with their weapons. Blood flew. Bones cracked. The crowd cheered with every brutal hit. After 5 minutes of savage combat, 1 warrior fell and could not rise. The winner stood over him, howling in victory. Medical personnel rushed in to drag the defeated warrior away. "This is how we forge strength," Kresh said, standing beside the humans. "Through pain. Through blood. Through proving yourself against those who want to destroy you." Minji watched the injured warrior being carried off. "That seems inefficient. How many warriors do you lose to training injuries?" Kresh's eyes narrowed. "The weak die. The strong survive. This is the way of nature." "That is not the way of progress," Minji replied softly. Vorthak heard this exchange. He turned his massive body toward the humans. "You dare question our ways? You who look like you would break in a strong wind?" Hyun placed a calming hand on Minji's shoulder and stepped forward. "Chieftain, we do not question your ways. We simply have different methods. Every species finds its own path to strength." "Then show us," Vorthak growled. "Show us your warrior ways. Prove that humans are not just prey animals playing at diplomacy. If you cannot, then leave our world. We have no need for the weak." The entire arena fell silent. Every Velkari eye focused on the 3 small humans standing in the center of their most sacred space. Even the cubs leaned forward with interest. Hyun met the chieftain's gaze without fear. "We will show you our ways, Chieftain Vorthak, but not in the manner you expect. Give us 3 days. Allow us to stay as your guests. Watch what we do. Then judge us. Forthak's lips pulled back, showing his sharp teeth. It might have been a smile or a threat. 3 days, human. But if you waste our time, your ship will leave without landing rights. You will tell all other humans that the Velkari found you unworthy. Agreed, Hyun said calmly. The chieftain gestured to some guards. Take them to the visitor quarters. They are not to enter our training grounds or sacred spaces. They will stay where we can watch them. As the humans were led away, the cubs whispered among themselves. One female cub named Rinna watched the humans with curious eyes. They do not seem afraid, she said to her friend Threk. Threk, a thoughtful male cub, nodded slowly. No, they do not. I wonder what they will show us. The adults around them laughed. They will show us nothing, an older warrior said. Prey animals have no warrior ways. 3 days from now, they will leave in shame. But Rinna kept watching the humans until they disappeared from sight. Something in the way the female human had spoken, calm and certain despite the mockery, had caught her attention. She had seen no fear in those strange human eyes, only patience. That night in their assigned quarters, Hyun sat with his team. They will not respect words, he said quietly. We must show them. Minji smiled and pulled out a case from their equipment. Then let us show them what humans do best. Day looked at the case and his nervous smile became genuine. You brought them? All of them, Minji confirmed. Every game we discussed. Tomorrow we begin. Outside their window, Velkara's 2 moons rose over a world that valued only strength. But strength, the humans knew, came in many forms. The morning sun was harsh on Velkara. Minji stood in the open courtyard outside their quarters, setting up equipment. She arranged colorful flags in the dirt. She marked boundaries with bright tape. She set up small boards with black and white squares on folding tables. Day helped her carry out bins filled with strange human items. Soft projectile launchers that looked like toys. Protective vests with sensors. Small carved pieces shaped like horses and towers and crowns. Maps printed on flexible screens. Do you really think this will work? Dai asked quietly. It has to, Minji replied. We cannot beat them at their own game. We must show them ours. A guard watched them from a distance, clearly bored. The humans were doing nothing that looked like warrior training. They were just playing with toys. By midday, everything was ready. Minji picked up one of the soft projectile launchers and fired at a target. A foam ball hit the center with a satisfying thump. She smiled. That was when she noticed the cubs. 5 young Velkari had crept closer, hiding behind a stone wall. They watched the humans with intense curiosity. These cubs were perhaps 10 years old in human terms, though they were already 4 feet tall and covered in fur. Their eyes were wide and interested. Minji pretended not to see them at first. She called out to Day, "Ready for capture the flag?" "Ready," Day called back. He stood at the opposite end of the courtyard near a blue flag stuck in the ground. Minji stood near a red flag. Jiwan, the communications officer who had joined them that morning, explained the rules loudly enough for the hiding cubs to hear. The goal is to take the enemy flag and bring it back to your base. But if you are tagged while carrying the flag, you must drop it. You can also tag opponents in their territory to send them back to their base. Simple, Minji said, but not easy. The 3 humans began their game. They ran and dodged and planned routes. They flanked each other and set traps and communicated with hand signals. It looked nothing like the brutal combat the Velkari practiced, but it required speed, planning, and teamwork. One cub, the male named Threk, whispered to his companions. This is a hunting game. They are using tactics. Rinna, the bold female, tilted her head. But they are not hurting each other. How does this make warriors? A smaller female cub named Mira pointed with her paw. Watch how the one named Minji waits for the other to commit before moving. She is thinking ahead. The cubs watched for nearly an hour. When the humans took a break, Rinna made a decision. She stood up and walked into the courtyard, her 4 friends following nervously behind her. Jiwan saw them first and smiled. Hello there. Would you like to try? The cubs stopped, suddenly uncertain. They looked back toward where the adult warriors trained in the distance. Playing with the soft humans could get them in trouble. Minji set down her launcher and approached slowly. She kept her body language open and friendly. This is called Capture the Flag. It is a war game. Humans use it to practice tactical thinking. Threk's ears perked up. War game? But there is no fighting. The best war is won without fighting, Minji said. An old human warrior named Sun Tzu taught us that. If you can outthink your enemy, you do not need to outfight them. A large male cub named Colt growled softly. My father says thinking is for cowards. Warriors who think first win, Ji-won replied. Warriors who only act die bravely but still die. This made the cubs pause. It was unlike anything their trainers taught them. Rinna stepped forward. Show us this game. Teach us, Minji's smile grew. Gladly. For the next 2 hours, the cubs learned human war games. They played capture the flag and learned about flanking maneuvers. They learned how to create diversions and how to think about territory control. At first, they simply charged forward like they had been taught, but Minji patiently explained better approaches. Your strength is obvious, she told Colt when he simply ran straight for the flag again. So they expected. What if you make them think you are going left, but Vesa goes right while they watch you? Vesa, a clever female cub, understood immediately. We divide their attention. Exactly, Minji said. Strategy is about using what you have in the smartest way possible. The cubs tried the new approach. Colt charged left, roaring loudly. Every human defender focused on him. Vesa slipped right, grabbed the flag, and returned to base before anyone noticed. The cubs stared at each other in amazement. They had won through thinking, not just doing. Again, Rinna demanded, her tail wagging with excitement. As the afternoon wore on, Sora, the medical officer, brought out a chessboard. The cubs gathered around the strange checkered board with its odd pieces. This is an ancient human war game, Sora explained. Each piece moves differently. Each has strengths and weaknesses. The goal is to trap the enemy king. But to do that, you must think many moves ahead. Threk sat down immediately, his analytical mind drawn to the puzzle. Teach me. Sora taught him the basics. How pawns move, how knights jump, how queens dominate the board. Threk lost his first 3 games badly, but Sora watched his face change as he began to understand patterns. You are not just reacting, Sora explained. You are predicting. You are asking, if I move here, what will my opponent do? And then what will I do after that? Good warriors think 3 moves ahead. Great warriors think 10 moves ahead. By the 4th game, Threk managed to capture Sora's queen. He stared at the board in wonder. Meanwhile, Minji had introduced the others to paintball simulators. These were foam projectile launchers with sensors that registered hits. The cubs wore vests that beeped when struck. This teaches you to work as a team, Minji explained. Communication is key. If Rinna knows where Mira is, they can coordinate attacks. If Colt tells Vesa what he sees, they can make better decisions. The cubs formed teams and played. At first it was chaos. They charged and fired wildly, but after several rounds, Ji-won stopped them. You are all acting alone, he said. Watch how we do it. The 3 humans played around against training drones. They called out positions constantly. 2 on the left.
High ground secured.
Flanking right side.
They moved as one unit, each person supporting the others. The cubs tried again, this time communicating. The difference was immediate. They started winning against the drones by working together instead of competing with each other. As the second sun began to set, the cubs heard their names called in the distance. Training time. They had to go. Can we come back tomorrow? Rinna asked, trying not to sound too eager. Any time, Minji said warmly. We will be here. The cubs ran off, looking back several times as they went. The adult guard who had been watching finally approached. You are wasting your time with cubs, he said. Playing games is not training. Minji began packing up the equipment. We will see. That night, the 5 cubs gathered in secret in their sleeping quarters. They whispered excitedly about what they had learned. Did you see how Ji-won predicted where the drone would move? Mira said, her eyes bright. The chess game makes my head hurt, Colt admitted. But I think I understand it. Every piece is a warrior with a different role. Vesa nodded eagerly. And the flag game taught me that being clever is as good as being strong. Maybe better? Threk was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, the trial of proving is in 2 days. We will face adult warriors in the arena. The others became silent. The trial was their coming-of-age test. Cubs were expected to fight adult warriors to show their courage. They always lost. The adults were too big, too strong, too experienced. The cubs just had to last as long as possible before being defeated. We will lose like always, Colt said glumly. We are cubs. They are warriors. Rinna's eyes gleamed in the darkness. Maybe we will. Or maybe we can use what the humans taught us. Use prey animal tactics? Vesa whispered, nervous. The elders would mock us. Only if we lose, Rina replied. What if we win? The 5 cubs looked at each other in the darkness, a new possibility forming in their young minds. The 3rd day on Velkara arrived with ceremony and tradition. The great arena, the same place where the humans had first witnessed Velkari combat, was packed with thousands of spectators. Today was the Trial of Proving, an annual event where cubs demonstrated their readiness to become junior warriors. Hyun and his team sat in a section reserved for honored guests. Though the honor felt more like mockery, Chieftain Vorthak had insisted they attend. He wanted the humans to witness what real warrior training produced. The morning trials had already begun. Cubs faced various challenges: strength tests, weapon demonstrations, endurance runs. But the main event, the one everyone truly cared about, came in the afternoon. That was when cubs would face adult warriors in combat trials. They make their children fight adults? Day asked quietly, horror in his voice. Sora nodded sadly. It is their way. The cubs are not expected to win. They just need to show courage and fighting spirit. House last about 30 seconds before being defeated. Barbaric, Jiwon muttered. Minji said nothing. Her eyes scanned the arena, analyzing the terrain. The fighting ground had been modified from the simple flat space they had seen on the first day. Now it featured obstacles: stone pillars, elevated platforms, narrow passages, and small barriers. It was designed to be interesting for spectators. The afternoon ceremony began with Chieftain Vorthak standing in the center of the arena. His voice boomed across the space. Today, our young prove themselves worthy of the warrior path. They will face trained fighters in honest combat. Some will show promise, some will show weakness. All will show us who they truly are. The crowd roared approval. First trial, Vorthak announced. 5 cubs against 5 warriors. Combat until surrender or incapacitation. A gate opened and 5 adult Velkari warriors entered. They were massive, scarred, and confident. Their weapons were training versions, wooden instead of steel, but still deadly enough. These were experienced fighters, each with at least 10 years of combat training. Then the opposite gate opened and 5 cubs entered. Hyun leaned forward. Those are the cubs who have been visiting us. Indeed, Rina, Threk, Mira, Colt, and Vesa walked into the arena. They looked tiny compared to their adult opponents. They wore standard light armor and carried basic training weapons. To any observer, this looked like a terrible mismatch. In the crowd, parents and elders made comments, poor cubs, against 5 elite warriors. They will learn humility today. 30 seconds at most. Kresh, the scarred warrior who had mocked the humans on the first day, sat near Vorthak. He noticed the cubs glancing toward where the humans sat. Look at that. The cubs seek comfort from the soft humans. Perhaps they should surrender now. Laughter rippled through the nearby warriors. In the arena, the referee, an elder warrior named Gormak, raised his hand. Combat begins when I drop my hand. Fight with honor. Show no mercy. The 5 adult warriors spread out confidently. They did not even bother forming a strategy. Why would they? Cubs were cubs. This would be over in moments. The cubs, however, did something strange. They immediately moved into a formation. Colt and Vesa moved to the front. Rina and Mira shifted to the sides. Threk moved slightly back, his eyes scanning everything. Minji smiled slightly. They are using a tactical formation. Gormak's hand dropped. Begin! The adult warriors charged forward with roars that shook the air. It was an intimidation tactic as much as an attack. Cubs usually froze in fear at this moment, making them easy targets. But these cubs did not freeze. The moment the adults committed to their charge, the cubs scattered in 5 different directions. They had practiced this exact movement while playing Capture the Flag. It was a dispersal tactic designed to make opponents choose targets and break their formation. The adult warriors, expecting terrified cubs to cluster together, suddenly had no central target. Their coordinated charge became 5 individual pursuits. The crowd murmured in confusion. This was not normal cub behavior. The largest adult warrior, a male named Gresh, focused on Colt. The cub was the biggest of the young ones, the obvious target. Gresh chased him toward a section of the arena with tall stone pillars. Colt ran, but not in panic. He ran with purpose, leading Gresh exactly where he wanted him to go. As Gresh rounded a pillar, Vesa dropped from the top of it, landing on his shoulders. At the same moment, Colt spun and swung his training club low, striking Gresh's legs. The massive warrior crashed to the ground, disoriented. Vesa struck the pressure point at the base of his neck, a precise hit that temporarily stunned him. First adult down. Time elapsed. 45 seconds. The crowd gasped. Another adult warrior, a female named Shara, pursued Mira toward a narrow passage between barriers. Mira was the fastest of the cubs, and she used every bit of her speed to stay just out of reach, leading Shara deeper into the passage. Too late, Shara realized it was a trap. The passage narrowed to a point where her larger body could barely fit, while Mira's smaller frame slipped through easily. Rinna waited on the other side. As Shara struggled in the tight space, Rinna struck her weapon from her hand and landed 3 rapid hits to vulnerable spots. Second adult down. Time elapsed. 2 minutes. Now the remaining 3 adult warriors realized something was wrong. These were not normal cubs. They stopped chasing and regrouped, standing back to back in a defensive triangle formation. Smart, one warrior named Vox said to his companions. They are using terrain against us. Stay together, make them come to us, but the cubs did not come to them. Instead, they spread out around the 3 adults, maintaining distance. They communicated with small gestures and sounds, coordinating without words. Threk had been observing everything, just as he did when playing chess. He saw the pattern. The adults expected an attack. They were ready for it, so he signaled a different play. The cubs began making noise. Rinna shouted insults from one direction. Colt banged his club on stone from another direction. Mira threw small stones that clattered off the adults' armor. Vesa howled from behind them. The 3 adults spun in different directions, trying to track all the threats. Their tight defensive formation began to loosen as each warrior focused on the threat nearest to them. That was when Threk gave the signal. All 5 cubs attacked simultaneously from different angles, converging on the adults in a coordinated strike. The adult warriors, distracted and divided in attention, could not defend against all directions at once. Rinna went low while Colt went high on one warrior. Mira and Vesa executed a pincer move on another. Threk himself engaged the third, using quick strikes and immediately retreating before the larger warrior could counter. It was controlled chaos. The cubs used speed, coordination, and the confusion of multiple opponents attacking from multiple angles. They hit and moved, never staying still, never giving the adults a clear target. One adult warrior fell, then another. The last warrior, Vox, stood alone surrounded by 5 cubs. He was breathing hard, frustrated, and increasingly desperate. He charged at Rinna, the closest cub, but Rinna simply dodged aside. Vox's momentum carried him forward off balance. The other 4 cubs struck simultaneously from behind and both sides. Vox went down hard. Silence filled the arena. 5 adult elite warriors lay defeated on the ground. 5 cubs stood victorious over them. Total time, 11 minutes and 32 seconds. The referee stood frozen in shock. This had never happened before, not once in the entire history of the trials. Chieftain Vorthak rose slowly from his seat, his expression unreadable. Kresh stared at the arena, his mouth hanging open. Then slowly, one Velkari in the crowd began to stomp his feet, then another, then dozens, then hundreds. The traditional Velkari sign of respect for warriors. The sound was like thunder. In the arena, Rinna approached the fallen Gresh and offered him her paw to help him up. This too was unusual. Cubs did not show mercy, but the humans had taught them about sportsmanship, about respecting defeated opponents. Gresh took her paw and stood, looking down at the tiny cub with new eyes. How? He asked simply. Rinna glanced toward where the humans sat. We learned from the prey animals. We learned to think before fighting. Vorthak's roar silenced the entire arena. Bring those cubs before me. And bring the humans as well. We will have words about this. The council chamber of Velkara was a massive stone hall decorated with weapons and banners from countless battles. The 5 cubs stood in the center of the room, still wearing their arena armor. They looked very small, surrounded by dozens of adult Velkari warriors and elders. The humans stood off to one side, having been summoned immediately after the trial. Hyun remained calm, though he could feel the tension in the room. Some of the Velkari looked angry. Others looked confused. A few looked thoughtful. Chieftain Vorthak sat on a raised platform, his clawed fingers tapping slowly on the armrests of his stone throne. The sound echoed in the silent chamber. Finally, he spoke. "Explain what happened in that arena." Gresh, one of the defeated warriors, stepped forward. Despite his loss, he stood with dignity. "Chieftain, the Cubs used tactics we have never seen before. They separated us, used the terrain, attacked from multiple angles. They fought as a coordinated unit rather than individuals." Another defeated warrior, Shara, added, "They led us into traps. They predicted our movements. They showed patience and planning instead of charging blindly." Vorthak's eyes narrowed. Cubs should not know such things. "Who taught you to fight like cowards? To run instead of face your enemy?" Rinna bristled at the word cowards, but Threk placed a calming paw on her shoulder. He stepped forward, his voice steady despite his fear. "We did not run, Chieftain. We maneuvered. There is a difference. The humans taught us that winning is more important than looking brave while losing." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several elders looked offended. Kresh, the scarred warrior, stood up angrily. "The humans, I knew it. They poisoned our cubs with their weak prey thinking. Is it weak if it works?" Vesa asked quietly, but her voice carried in the chamber. The question hung in the air. Vorthak gestured toward Hyun. "Human ambassador, what have you done to our young?" Hyun walked forward calmly. Minji and the others stayed back, letting him speak. "We did nothing, Chieftain. We simply played games in our courtyard. The cubs watched. They asked to join. We taught them the rules. That is all. Games," an elder warrior spat. "War is not a game, but games can teach war," Minji said, stepping forward despite protocol. "Your warriors are strong and brave. No one questions that. But strength and bravery are not enough when facing enemies who think as well as fight. We have conquered 12 systems through strength." Kresh growled. "We need no thinking." "And how many warriors did you lose to conquer those systems?" Sora asked gently. "How many could have survived if they had tactical training alongside combat training?" This question made several warriors shift uncomfortably. The Velkhari had indeed suffered heavy losses in their conquests. It was accepted as the price of war. Vorthak raised a hand for silence. He looked at the 5 cubs. "You 5 defeated adult warriors. This has never happened. But tell me truly, young ones, do you believe your new tactics make you better warriors than those who taught you the old ways?" Threk considered the question carefully. "No, Chieftain. The adults are still stronger, faster, and more experienced. We won because they did not expect what we did. Now they know. Next time will be harder. But..." He paused, gathering courage. "If we combined Velkhari strength with human strategy, would we not be even more powerful?" Silence filled the chamber as the Velkhari absorbed this idea. Colt spoke up, his voice deep for a cub. "My father always taught me that a warrior uses every weapon available." "Is our mind not a weapon?" Mira added. "The humans have a saying. The supreme art of war is to defeat the enemy without fighting. If we can win with less bloodshed, is that not better?" Rinna looked directly at Vorthak. "We still have our claws and teeth and strength. We still have our courage. But now we also have plans. Why is this bad?" An older warrior, one who had been quiet until now, stood up. His fur was gray with age and his body showed scars from decades of combat. His name was Elder Vorn, and he was one of the most respected warriors on the planet. "I have fought for 40 years, Vorn said slowly. "I have won many battles. I have also seen many young warriors die because they only knew how to charge forward bravely. Bravery is important, but dead warriors cannot protect their people." He turned to look at the cubs. "Today I watched cubs defeat warriors I trained myself. My first reaction was anger. How dare these children make my students look foolish? But then I thought about what I actually saw." Vorn walked to the center of the chamber. "I saw coordination. I saw adaptability. I saw tactics that use the fighter's advantages while avoiding their disadvantages. I saw victory with minimal injury to either side. Is this not the goal of combat, to win? But the honor," another warrior began. "There is no honor in a beautiful death," Vorn interrupted. "Only in a purposeful life. These cubs showed me something today. They showed me that we have been teaching half of what makes a true warrior. We teach strength and courage, but we do not teach thinking and planning. Perhaps we should." Vorthak stared at the elder for a long moment. Then he turned back to the humans. "Ambassador Hyun, you said you came to discuss trade agreements." "Yes, Chieftain. What does your world trade in?" Hyun smiled slightly. Many things, technology, resources, and knowledge. Knowledge, Vorthak repeated the word slowly. He looked at the 5 cubs again. They stood tall, proud of what they had accomplished. Then he looked at the defeated warriors, who no longer looked ashamed but thoughtful. I challenged you to show us your warrior ways, Vorthak said to the humans. I expected you to fail. Instead, you taught our children to defeat our adults. This is... He paused, searching for the right word. Impressive. Kresh stepped forward, struggling with his words. Chieftain, I must speak. I have been a warrior for 20 years. I have trained hundreds of cubs. Today, 5 cubs taught me that I still have much to learn. This is difficult to admit. He turned to face Hyun directly. I mocked you when you arrived. I called you prey. I was wrong. Any species that survives through intelligence is not prey. They are simply hunters who use different weapons. Minji bowed her head slightly in acknowledgement of his words. Vorthak stood from his throne and walked down to the floor level. He was enormous, towering over everyone, but his expression had changed from hostile to considering. Humans, I accused you of being weak, but now I wonder if perhaps you are strong in ways we do not understand. My warriors are powerful. Your people are clever. What could we learn from each other? Day spoke for the first time, his voice warm. That is what diplomacy is, chieftain. 2 different peoples sharing their strengths to become better together. Vorthak looked at his council members. I propose a cultural exchange. Human teachers will come to Velkara to teach tactical strategy. Velkari warriors will teach combat discipline. We will create warriors who are both strong and smart. Elder Vorn nodded immediately. I support this. Other council members began voicing agreement. Even Kresh, after a long moment, nodded his acceptance. Vorthak turned to the 5 cubs. You 5 will be known as bridge warriors. You are the first of a new generation. You have shown courage not just in fighting, but in being willing to learn new ways. This too is warrior spirit. Rinna's tail wagged despite her attempts to remain dignified. Threk stood straighter. Colt, Vesa, and Mira beamed with pride. And the trade agreement? Hyun asked carefully. We will sign your agreement, Vorthak said, but we add new terms. Your people will send tactical instructors. We will send combat trainers. Your merchant ships will have full access to our trade routes. Our warriors will learn from your people. And perhaps in time, we will call each other allies rather than just trade partners. Hyun extended his hand, a human gesture. Vorthak looked at it for a moment, then clasped it with his massive paw. The size difference was comical, but the meaning was clear. In the back of the chamber, Ji-won whispered to Sora, We came here to trade goods. We are leaving having traded something much more valuable. Knowledge, Sora agreed. Outside the council chamber, young Velkari cubs who had heard about the trial's results whispered among themselves. They wanted to learn the human games too. They wanted to become bridge warriors. The old way of the Velkari, where only strength mattered, was beginning to change. And it had all started with 5 curious cubs who dared to play human war games. 3 weeks had passed since the trial of proving that changed everything. The human diplomatic vessel sat on the same landing platform where it had first arrived, but the atmosphere was completely different now. Velkari guards stood at attention in respectful salute rather than mocking surveillance. Cubs practiced human war games in courtyards throughout the city. Adult warriors attended strategy, lectures given by Minji and other human instructors who had arrived on supply ships. Hyun stood in the main courtyard, watching a group of 30 cubs learn, just from Sora. The young Velkari argued passionately about moves and strategies, their competitive nature channeled into mental combat rather than just physical. It is strange to see, a voice said behind him. Hyun turned to find Elder Vorn approaching. The old warrior moved slowly but with dignity. What is strange, Elder? Our cubs laughing while learning war, Vorn said, settling onto a stone bench. In my youth, warrior training meant blood and pain every day. I lost 2 brothers before they turned 15. Training injuries. I thought this was simply the cost of becoming strong. And now? Hyun asked, sitting beside him. Now I wonder how many brothers I could still have if someone had taught us to think as well as fight. Vorn watched the cubs for a moment. One of those cubs is my granddaughter, Mira. She is small even for her age. I feared she would not survive warrior training. But yesterday she defeated 2 larger cubs in a tactical exercise using nothing but clever positioning and patience.
She did not need to be bigger.
She just needed to be smarter. Hyun smiled. Every warrior has different strengths. The key is learning to use them. In another courtyard, Minji ran a simulation exercise with a group of adult warriors. They practiced coordinated assault tactics using the foam launchers. At first, the warriors had scoffed at the toy weapons, but after losing repeatedly to smaller opponents who used superior tactics, they had become eager students. Kresh participated in this group. The scarred warrior who had mocked humans on the first day now studied their methods with intense focus. He approached Minji after the exercise ended. "Instructor Minji, a question," he said formally. "Of course. When you arrived, I thought you were weak. I thought humans were prey animals playing at being civilized. I was cruel to you." Kresh's ears flattened in a gesture of shame. "I apologize," Minji nodded acceptance. "You judged based on what you knew. Now you know more. That is growth." "But how did your species survive?" Kresh asked genuinely. "You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Yet humans spread across multiple star systems. How?" "We adapted," Minji replied simply. "When we could not outfight predators, we outsmarted them. We created tools. We worked together. We planned. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived not through being strongest, but through being most clever. Evolution made us this way." Kresh considered this. "So your entire species is built on tactical thinking?" "In a way, yes. Fighting is our last option, not our first. But when we must fight, we fight to win by any means necessary. We learned long ago that pride in combat means nothing if you are dead." "This is wisdom," Kresh acknowledged. He hesitated, then asked, "Would you train me personally?" "I want to learn more. I want to become a better warrior, not just a stronger fighter." "I would be honored," Minji said. Across the city in the council chamber, Chieftain Vorthak met with Hyun to finalize the cultural exchange program details. The massive Velkari leader had softened considerably over the past weeks, though he remained commanding. 20 human instructors will arrive each season, Vorthak confirmed, reading from a data pad. "They will teach strategy, tactics, logistics, and what you call game theory to our warriors and cubs. In exchange, 20 Velkari combat instructors will travel to human worlds to teach close combat, survival skills, and weapons mastery." "Agreed," Hyun said. "Additionally, our academic institutions are very interested in cultural exchange students. We would welcome young Velkari who want to study human tactical theory in more depth." Vorthak's expression showed surprise. "You would allow Velkari cubs into your schools?" "Even after how we treated you." "Especially because of how you treated us," Hyun replied. "You judged us based on appearance and assumption. The best way to prevent that in the future is through understanding. Cubs who study among humans will return home knowing we are not prey animals. They will teach their own cubs. In a generation or two, both our peoples will see each other as equals. You think far ahead, human," Vorthak said with what might have been respect. "Like a chess player," Hyun smiled. "We try." Later that day, the 5 bridge warriors came to say goodbye to the departing human delegation. Rinna, Threk, Mira, Colt, and Vesa had become minor celebrities on Velkara. Other cubs looked up to them. Adults sought their advice on the new tactical methods. They wore special armbands marking their status as the first of a new type of warrior. "You are leaving," Rinna said to Jiwon, trying to sound formal, but her drooping tail showed her sadness. "For now," Jiwon replied, "but other humans will come, and perhaps one day you 5 will visit human worlds." Threk's ears perked up. "Truly, we could travel to Earth?" "If you wish," Hyun said. "The cultural exchange goes both directions. You 5 have shown remarkable aptitude for tactical thinking. Human military academies would welcome you as students." The cub's eyes widened. The idea of seeing other worlds, learning from other species, was thrilling. Colt, ever practical, asked, "Would we need to give up being Velkari warriors?" "Never," Minji assured him. "You would add to what you are, not replace it. A Velkari warrior with human tactical training is not less Velkari. They are more complete." Vesa stepped forward shyly. "Thank you for teaching us. We thought we knew what being strong meant. Now we understand strength has many forms," Mira added. "And thank you for being patient with us, for not being angry when the adults were cruel to you." Day knelt down to be closer to eye level with the cubs. Being angry would have accomplished nothing. "We came here to build bridges, not walls. Sometimes the best way to change minds is to show a better way, not to argue about the old way." As the time for departure approached, more Velkari gathered to see the humans off. The crowd was vastly different from the mocking group that had greeted their arrival. Warriors saluted. Cubs waved. Even Chieftain Vorthak descended from his fortress to stand at the landing platform. "Safe travels, Ambassador Hyun," Vorthak said formally. "You came here as strangers. You leave as friends. Perhaps in time you will be allies." "I hope so, Chieftain," Hyun replied. "Your people have great strength. My people have great knowledge. Together we could both be greater." Vorthak actually smiled, showing his teeth in a way that was friendly rather than threatening. "Your species is strange, human. You win wars by teaching your enemies. You defeat warriors by playing games. You conquer prejudice with patience. These are not the ways of the Velkari." "Perhaps they could be," Hyun suggested gently. "Not replacing your ways, but adding to them." As the humans boarded their ship, Rinna suddenly broke from the group and ran forward. She stopped in front of Minji and performed a perfect Velkari warrior salute, one fist over her heart. "You are the strangest warrior I have ever met," Rinna said seriously. "But I think you might be the best." Minji returned the salute. "And you are the bravest cub I have ever met, because you were brave enough to learn something new. That takes more courage than fighting." The ship's engines hummed to life. The humans took their positions inside. As the vessel lifted off from the rocky surface of Velkara, they looked down at the gathered crowd. Jiwon stood at a viewport watching the cubs waving from below. "Do you think this will really change anything? Or will they go back to the old ways once we are gone?" Sora joined him at the window. "Look at those cubs. They will not forget what they learned. They will teach others. And those others will teach more. Change does not happen all at once. It spreads like ripples in water." Hyun sat in the captain's chair, reviewing the signed agreements on his datapad. The trade routes they had secured would benefit human commerce significantly. But that was not what made him smile. "We came here to trade goods," he said to his team. "Instead, we traded something more valuable." "Ideas," Minji said. "Hope," Day added. "The future," Sora concluded. As the ship broke atmosphere and the stars became visible, Hyun composed his report to Earth Command. He paused at the section asking for mission success rating. How did one measure this kind of success? He wrote, "Mission exceeded expectations. We did not conquer the Velkari through weapons. We did not negotiate through threats. We simply showed them a different way of seeing the world. Sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a gun or a bomb, but an idea whose time has come. The idea we brought to Velkara is simple. Strength and intelligence together are better than either alone." They listened. They learned. They changed. And in the process we may have gained not just trade partners, but future allies in a galaxy that needs more cooperation and less conflict. Back on Velkara's surface, the 5 bridge warriors stood together watching the human ship disappear into the sky. "Things will be different now," Threk observed. "Better different," Vesa said. "We will make sure of it," Rinna declared. "We will teach others what the humans taught us. We will show them that being smart is not being weak." Colt nodded firmly. "We are still Velkari. We are still warriors, but now we are more." Mira looked at her friends, her tail wagging slightly. "We are bridge warriors, and this is only the beginning." In the distance, other cubs were gathering in courtyards asking the adult warriors to teach them the human games. The change had begun. It could not be stopped now. The prey animals had left Velkara, but they had left behind something that would transform an entire civilization. The simple knowledge that there are many ways to be strong, and the wisdom to know when to use each one. High above in orbit, the human ship set coordinates for home. But Hyun knew they would return to Velkara. There would be more exchanges, more teaching, more learning on both sides. The Velkari would teach humans about courage and honor and close combat. The humans would teach Velkari about strategy and logistics and tactical theory. And perhaps in a few generations there would be a new kind of warrior in the galaxy, one who combined the physical prowess of the Velkari with the tactical mind of humanity, one who knew when to fight and when to think, one who understood that true strength comes not from choosing between mind and body, but from using both together. The prey animals had taught the predators a lesson that no amount of combat could have conveyed. The greatest victories are not won on battlefields, but in hearts and minds. And that, Hyun reflected as the stars streaked past his viewport, was a very human way to triumph.